Welcome back, everyone. It's good to see you here again. Before we get started, let's go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. I cut a couple pieces of walnut to about 17 or 18 inches. I was going to originally do one cutting board, but I wanted to play around with some pigments and colors and see what I could come up with. I cut these boards in half, approximately to 6 or 7 inches. Be sure not to just plunge directly into the walnut. Take your time and kind of teeter-totter the saw back and forth so it doesn't pinch. I went ahead and found the center point of my walnut and sliced this piece down on my bandsaw, but you don't necessarily need a 2-inch thick piece of walnut. You could just purchase it at 3/4 inch thick, or you can make yourself a very thick butcher block style cutting board that's 2 inches thick. It's all your personal preference. I pretty much just scribble in some lines where the epoxy will go in the center. It doesn't need to be perfect, and I kind of like it flowing naturally. I double up on the aluminum tape so that there aren't any breaches, because I've had it happen before and the epoxy went everywhere. It was all over the table. I mean, an absolute disaster. Press the tape on the bottom and try not to crease or dent it in too much. Make sure there aren't any holes for anything to get out of, and if there are, just cover them up with some more tape. Alright, let's mix up some epoxy. For this one, I'm using TotalBoat epoxy, part A, part B. I believe the mixture is 50/50. So in these cups here, I think they are around 10 ounces, 10 ounces if you fill it all the way up. And that should give you enough or close to enough to fill in one cutting board each. Here are the black diamond pigments I'll be using today. For the first one, I used a black, Liberty Copper, and an orange. And for the other one, I used like 3 different types of blue pigments. Mix up the epoxy after you throw the pigment in so everything gets stirred up really well. And I can't stress enough that you should stir this for up to 5 minutes like the directions say, so that everything bonds properly. Now that's really satisfying to watch. It's like blue caramel. After everything is poured, I go back and give it some swirls to kind of add an effect to it. Alright, torch time. You don't have to get really close to it. Just keep it at distance. It'll pull the bubbles up very easily. After letting it sit overnight, let's go ahead and see what everything looks like and pull this tape off. As you can see down here at the bottom, some of the tape bent in and put a little crease in the epoxy, which is kind of annoying because then I have to plane off a little more than I'd like to. Just watching me crank down on this wheel makes me feel very exhausted. I gave it a bunch of light passes until the epoxy was even with the walnut. Here I give the boards a little cut on the edges to clean them up. I believe I started out with an 80 grit just due to the fact that the walnut had a bit of snipe from the planer. And then I worked my way up the grits, even all the way to 400 or 600 hand sanding. I'm using some basic butcher block oil from the big box store. I did use some steel wool prior to this part also to finish out the sanding. I went back with the buffer to kind of work things into the grain a little bit better.
Oh, that was a really fun build. I really enjoy the copper and the way the black comes out in this one here and the blues. It was an interesting mixture that I used for both of these that I haven't tried before that really helped them stand out. But you know, the walnut looks absolutely fabulous. So, you know, let me know what you guys think about the build itself, what you would do maybe differently, you know, any ways to improve on the design. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.